I don't think it is maybe just for that, enjoyment.
What would be standing in the way for you to live vegan?
I like cheese, I like dairy products.
Hi, this is Lucy and this is?
I'm Grace.
The first thing I'd like to ask you is what do you think about the phrase, with great power comes great responsibility?
Just that people that have a lot of influence have the responsibility to look out for the people that they have influence over and to not take advantage of that power and to use it in an appropriate and ethical way.
Would you say that this applies to physical strength, intellect, superior intellect, for example?
I think in most cases it probably applies to intellect. I mean, maybe physical power as well. I think it depends on the scenario, but I think in today's world it's more, that phrase applies more to politicians or like I'm a teacher. I feel like I have a lot of power sometimes over the next generation. So people in those sorts of positions more versus the physical power.
Would you say that this phrase would apply in a relationship between a pet parent and a pet, for example?
Yeah, I mean that parent has the responsibility to take care of the pet and keep it healthy and alive and, take it out on walks, exercise it, bring it to the vet. So yeah, I would say so. It's a little different than I think someone in a position of power that's more of like a parental role, but they're similar.
Would you say that the human has more power than the pet in that scenario? Or no?
Yeah.
So do you eat or purchase cows, chickens, eggs, dairy, or like wear wool or leather, for example?
Yeah, I don't follow any certain diet, I guess. Yeah.
Would it be okay if I showed you a 3-minute video on the standard practices in animal agriculture?
Yeah.
Yeah? All right, sweet. Thank you so much for sitting through this.
Yeah, that was a tough video to watch, but yeah.
All right. So you said that it was a tough video to watch. How did that make you feel watching it?
I mean, I think it's in human nature to, it's not enjoyable to watch animals be killed. So yeah, I mean, it's a hard thing to watch, but I think, living in Montana and, I don't know, places like Montana, I feel like we have a closer connection with food sometimes, especially animal products. I don't hunt. I've never hunted or killed an animal, but I know a lot of people around Montana hunt and understand the reality. It's not a pretty thing to, kill an animal for food.
How do you think the animals feel in the video?
It doesn't look like a good time. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I like the point you brought up earlier about the pet owner and the pet. It is a curious thing, kind of the animals that we pick and choose to kind of domesticate and keep as pets or to use for food. I feel like it's kind of just an interesting cultural thing, and I have gone through bouts of being vegetarian and have switched back and forth, and it's tough to think about, but I'm not really sure how animals feel, I guess, in comparison to humans.
Going back to, actually you brought it back to that, what I was asking about earlier, about the pet-parent relationship. Yeah. Would you say that we have, as consumers, more power over these animals, these farmed animals, or this fish, for example?
Yeah, I mean, as a consumer, whether it's food or, any other product that you buy, it's important to think it through and, choose things that align with your values and ethics, whether that's, a dairy product or meat or plastic, one-use products. As consumers, we have a lot of power over these things, but also it's kind of the bigger corporations as well. So I think we can do our small part as consumers, but the big corporations are where the work needs to be done. So those bigger butcheries, right, that are maybe not treating the animals as well as some other like farms and but small town butchers.
All right, so since we have, as consumers, even if we would have a reduced amount of power, we still have some power, right? Like you said.
Yeah.
In a pet-parent relationship, the responsibility of the pet parent, the bare minimum, you would kind of expect it to be like, I mean, keep the pet alive, right?
Yeah.
Right? Not abuse them, like not kick them, things like that, right? Would you say that these things like not abusing the animal and not killing the animal are met in animal agriculture?
Well, like I was saying earlier, I mean, with a pet, obviously, yeah, I mean, people adopt a pet and as like a companion, right? And they're thought to keep it alive, hopefully, if they're a good pet parent. And yeah, like I was saying earlier, I think it's an interesting cultural thing that our society in the U.S. will choose animals like dogs and cats and horses and like animals like that to be pets, but maybe in another culture people might be eating horse or dog meat. So I think it is just normalized.
So you mentioned the smaller farms, for example, and the responsibility of corporations. So I have a challenging question.
Okay.
All right, how do you humanely kill someone who doesn't want to die?
Well, you say someone, right? And again, I feel like I'm still forming my opinions about all of this, but I think obviously a human being, I don't believe that you should kill any human being. I think an animal is different than a human being.
In what way?
Well, they don't have the same, I don't know, like free will and higher intelligence, I guess. And I don't think that really, I don't know, the higher intelligence aspect doesn't have something to do with that, because even if a human wasn't super intellectual, I wouldn't say that you would kill them, obviously. So I don't know, I think there's a pretty innate difference between a human being and an animal.
It's really cool that you brought up the intellect, because if a human, like you said, was more or less intelligent, it wouldn't really matter with the worth of their life, right?
Yeah.
So what is the trait that makes it okay to kill an animal and not okay to kill a human? What is the specific trait?
Yeah. I think that the specific trait, I feel like this is something that I have, struggled with, honestly, but I don't know if it's one specific trait, honestly, but I think it's honestly just been kind of part of our history, and all of our ancestors, had to survive at some point. And it's the circle of life in a way, right? Do you think it's wrong for for example, a bear to kill a smaller animal?
Do they have a choice, and do they need that to be healthy, and do we? What would you think about that?
Well, like I said, I've kind of gone through bouts of being vegetarian, and I would say that when I am eating meat, I feel much better, like more awake, less hangry. I think that there are a lot of ways that, I could balance a vegetarian or vegan diet better, but I do think it is part of kind of the life cycle, and those animals that are eating other animals for their diet and to stay alive, it's just kind of part of the circle
of life ain't nothing but an aggrandized, arbitrary bullshit excuse to torment and kill somebody else with impunity.
If we weren't hunting elk or different animals like that, they would have too high of a population, and same for fishing, right? So if people weren't fishing, then there would be too many fish, and it would end up being a problem. Just part of like the ecological system, right? And although those animals don't have a conscience, right? Maybe that's the difference between the animals and the humans, is that they don't have a conscience, but also it's just kind of, we're animals at the end of the day too.
Why not be like more because there are herbivores in that system, right? You can be part of that system and eat plants, for example, or be an omnivorous.
I think these are important questions to be asking, and honestly, I just don't have all the information from either sides of the discussion. But I think starting locally is a good way to cut down on the impact to the environment.
The thing that really shocked me actually when I looked into that is that transportation in terms of like the footprint of a product is really a small part of that footprint. What's more important is what we eat, like the kind of food we're growing or raising. And so what they found out is that all animal products like dairy, eggs, etc. have a way higher, even fish, have a higher footprint than plant products because we have to feed animals the crops, for example, you know. So since we know that we can be healthy on a vegan diet, right, it's better for the environment and that there's not really a humane way to kill an animal, what would be standing in the way for you to live vegan?
I mean, just being honest, you know, I like cheese, I like dairy products, and I don't know if that's really, you know, a good enough reason. I think it kind of ties back to, honestly, a little bit of a cultural element. I mean, I'm a mid-class woman, and it honestly is a little bit easier to eat meat and dairy products financially as well, right? So it's easier to get your nutrients and become full from those animal and dairy products, and not everyone has the privilege to be vegan or vegetarian. I think these are good things to talk about, but I don't think it's achievable for everyone to be able to live healthily off of a vegan or vegetarian diet.
Vegan diets, especially in the Western countries, are 30% cheaper than the other ones. So that's really cool to know. And I'm broke, like I'm pretty poor actually. And I live really well on a vegan diet. So you mentioned taste, right? Like taste, pleasure is an important part of your life, which I agree, me too. So if you were one of the animals in the video, and and you heard that like the reason why this is happening to them is for taste, pleasure, and the cultural aspect, how would you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to just how the animals feel and the difference between being human and an animal and kind of the consciousness. I don't really think that they don't know that, right?
No, but if you could understand and you could speak, let's say.
Yeah, but we can't.
Yeah. What I mean is like, okay, let's say you were a human, right, on Earth. I mean, you are a human on Earth. But let's say in this scenario, aliens come down and start forming us, right? And they tell you that the reason is for taste, pleasure, and for the cultural aspect of it. How would you feel about that?
Well, can we communicate with the aliens?
Yes.
Well, we can't communicate with the animals, so that's different.
Well, that's not really why I'm going there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just think if we were able to communicate with animals and ask them how they felt and that they were conscious and could stand up and give opinions or say, you know, how they felt, because that's what you're asking, but we can't do that. So it's different because they're not a conscious human. When
you watched the video, would you say that they're in pain?
I mean, it was a gruesome video. I would say that they are in pain and can feel pain, but they don't have the same consciousness as a human. Because when we're at the store where we see the eggs, the dairy, etc., the fish, whatever, it's kind of hard to remember the individual on the other side of that, right? Yeah. And so I think it's important to know that each time we purchase these products, like there's an individual at the other end of that was exploited for us, right? Which is hard to, you know, remember, like it's hard emotionally and everything, but well, an animal, not an individual person, right? An individual animal, being. An individual being. Yeah, that is true. And I think it's important to all of your food that you buy, right, not to waste food and understand where it comes from, whether it's an animal or like our produce. People will spend hours picking in a field, you know, not getting enough money, right? So we don't want to waste food, and we want to know like where our food is coming from and try our best to be ethical with the budget that we have and follow your belief system.
Last thing. Okay, I promise
Okay.
this is the last one,
Okay.
all right? Would you say that the fact that this is a cultural aspect of our life, right? The fact that we eat animal products and that it gives us taste pleasure, would you say that this is more important than the life of an animal and what they go through?
I think that's a good question to ponder. I would say it depends, you know, on the person. And I think everyone's aware of this, you know, that there are other options like being vegan or vegetarian, and everyone's just grappling with their own beliefs and what they decide to do. So, you know, I think it depends person to person. And I don't think it is maybe just for that, you know, enjoyment. And I think there's a lot of aspects and angles. So it's a complex topic.
Hi, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and see you in the next video.